Hello, guys. This is a review of the movie Closet Monster. Closet Monster is one of my favorite movies ever. No exaggeration, no hyperbole. It was one of my first reviews, but I felt then and I feel like I could do a much better job now. So, this is me trying to do a much better job. I mean, this movie meant so much to me and was with me during such a transformative part of my life, we could say. I remember coming across an ad on Facebook for the movie while it was still barely being shown on some festivals, and it was this colorful cover along with a brief summary that said something like, "High school student wants to go to art school and work on gory special effects type of art. He's struggling with his sexuality," and just like one more brief sentence, and I was like, well, I'm in. I mean, it's describing me, isn't it? I was very excited to watch this movie. So when it became available, maybe sometime 2015 or 2016 was when I bought it, as soon as it became available. And now look at us. I mean, it's been many years. That's where I discovered Connor Jessup, the star of the movie. But anyway, let's go ahead and start talking about the plot of the movie first, and then I'll maybe inject like a few opinions here and there, but I'll get into my entire opinions and why I love this movie so much after I go over the plot. Just if you haven't watched it, then you get an understanding of what the movie is about. Hopefully you have, though. But even if you have, maybe it's just a little refresher. So, Closet Monster follows the story of Oscar. At a very young age, Oscar experienced two life changing events. One of them being the one that I made mention to just now, which was him witnessing a hate crime. His classmates go over to a park or cemetery type of place and they insert a metal rod into another kid's butt, making him. He didn't pass away, I don't think. I think he was just a paraplegic. Um, and it was crazy, it was gruesome. It was something that nobody really has, the guts to watch something like that, something so inhumane, especially not at that age. The other event that shaped Oscar's life was the separation of his parents. In an effort to make the separation a little more manageable for Oscar, they being his parents, decide to buy him a hamster. And this hamster's name is Buffy. Buffy's present throughout the entire movie, even when the years pass by. Buffy talks. So, this isn't a fairy tale movie, this isn't some sci fi crazy out of this world flick, but the hamster literally talks to Oscar. And they engage in dialogue. It's not just in his head. Well, obviously, it's in his head to a certain extent. But I feel, and this is my personal opinion because I didn't talk to the creators of the movie directly, but I feel like it's a nod to Oscar's innocence. And it's a very cute and artful way of letting us know that, yes, Oscar is now a teenager, but a certain part of him is underdeveloped. And he preserves in a childlike innocence. And we see that through his ability to talk to a hamster, which is something that people really can't do. But as kids, we tend to play around and play with toys and act as if they're really talking. So I feel like that's just a nod to his underdeveloped childhood innocence slash trauma, because there's a lot of trauma with that. The traumatic aspect comes in the shape of a physical manifestation of his anxiety and homophobia, internalized homophobia, when he feels like there's a rod coming out of his stomach. He gets this very sharp stomach ache every time he has gay thoughts. So, fast forward to Oscar now being a teenager. He's best friends with a girl named Gemma who likes him, and then soon discovers that he doesn't like her because he's gay. And we get introduced to Wilder. Wilder is this very attractive guy who Oscar likes from the moment that he meets him. He meets him at work and he asks him if he could wear his shirt because he forgot his. And that's how it all starts. I mean, instantly, even from that moment, Oscar feels a sharp pain in his stomach. And there, is the whole hint that he likes him from the very beginning. There's a lot of problems with the movie. Not with the movie, with Oscar's life in the movie. One of those being that his dad is very immature, he's very childlike, he has anger issues, he feels like his mom abandoned him, and at one point he goes off to this party, this, I would say, goodbye party for Wilder, when he tells Oscar that he has to leave and he has to go back home and this and that. They go to a costume party. In order to go to that party, Oscar had to kick his dad in the closet, literally, because he said that he wasn't going to go. After that, they have to leave, so they go over to Oscar's treehouse, Wilder and him, and they have a very loving, intimate, passionate kiss. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful kisses I've ever seen, and it's kind of gooey when I describe it, but then you'll understand when I give you my thoughts on it. I just want to summarize this as fast as possible because then I'll be here all night. I mean, there's so many good things to talk about with this movie, but let's finish with the plot. He has a change of hearts. He comes around. He has this realization that his mom is not the monster that he thinks she is, or that he's painting her out to be. He starts living with her after his dad kills his hamster and he escapes to the party. He does not get accepted to the university, the sole university that he applied to. So he ends up going to art school. But I feel like he's positive about that. It's not as negative as he thought in the beginning. And he sends off Buffy into the ocean. And it's a very cute scene because Buffy's like, "You do know I'm not the original hamster your parents gave you, right? I mean, we don't live that long." I'm paraphrasing it. It's so cute, so funny. And then in the end, he goes up to sleep and remembers a game that his dad played with him, where he blows up a balloon and fills him with dreams that he's supposedly gonna have overnight. And that's the end of the movie. So many amazing things to talk about. Let's get started with Gemma. The actress that plays Gemma in this movie is fantastic. Is there a possibility that maybe this role was custom made and she just got the best pointers from the director and all the notes and all the research? I don't know. But I'm willing to bet that it's just her being that talented. I unfortunately haven't had a chance to actually watch any other movies with the actress that plays Gemma, but I could tell you here and now that it's one of the most fantastic performances I've ever seen in my entire life. This actress just nailed it. So straightforward. Oftentimes we see in movies, especially LGBT movies, this over exaggeration, this Disney type of, or Nickelodeon type of acting where you know where the camera's at, you position, you look up, and it's like you're breaking the fourth wall. Something that maybe unconsciously, like, a lot of trained actors do. I'm not saying that she's trained or not, I don't know. And I didn't actually do a lot of research on her. I mean, years ago, I did look a little bit into it because I wanted to watch some of her movies, but I feel like that's just irrelevant. What's important is her performance here as Gemma. There's a scene, for example, where she realizes that Oscar's not interested in her, or she assumes, because Wilder gives Oscar his shirt back and gives him a blunt as a thank you, and he's like, "Oh, oh." She's like, "Oh, so this is why you didn't kiss back when I tried to kiss you." And it seems so obvious, but I love it when actors do things that everybody else does in the real world without actually having to speak, and to do so in such a believable way. Another scene that I could think of is when their Gemma is going to her car to put away groceries. She's coming out of the grocery store, obviously, and Oscar's dad is also coming out of the grocery store, and he's like, "Is Oscar, like, hinting as if is he gay?" And Gemma's like, "Is this really happening right now?" It's such a funny thing to see, because how many awkward moments have we not lived in our everyday lives where those things tend to happen, and you feel like, why is that person asking me this? Like, what am I gonna say? And she does it in such a believable way. I'm Mexican, I come from a different culture, but the realness and those spontaneous reactions are universal for all humans. And Gemma just nails it. Like, I just can't stop saying that Gemma's just so amazing. In the entire movie, there's not a scene wasted with her in it. I mentioned earlier how this was my introduction to Connor Jessup. I have several movies with him. I really like his acting. I trust his instinct, sorry, and his talents as an actor. I haven't watched his most recent show, Lock and Key, but I really do trust his vision. I think he's also fantastic. Everybody did a fantastic job here. Um, let's see. There's a scene in the movie where Oscar is an 8-year old kid still. He comes out of school and a girl asks him, "What's that on your nails?" And then he goes like this, and instead of going like this, and the girl explains that he's probably going to grow up to be gay because if you're a boy and you do what he did, that's what that means. And he should have done it like this instead of like that, which is something that reminds me of when I was young in Mexico. And even here, kids would do that. Kids would ask you, and then it depends how you would hold your hand. And it just brought me back. Fortunately, I mean, bless the world and destiny that I have never had to experience anything like that, let alone at that age, like the hate crime that Oscar witnessed. But it's a very crazy thing. Now that I'm talking about that, the place where that happens, I think it's a cemetery or maybe a park. I mentioned it earlier. But the whole entire movie, Closet Monster, is very dreamlike. It has a lot of visually appealing and free uh, methods. I phrase that very in a very confusing way. Okay, for example, when Oscar is fantasizing sexually about Wilder, it's not just the, oh my gosh, let me just beat it off to him. It's not just that. He sees him, for example, and I'll put it in one of the pictures that I put over the video, where Wilder is just in this pinkish, cotton, cloudy looking space, and then something like milk is poured over him. Like there's a lot of creative liberties and very, like I said, visually enticing scenes that are only available in movies that allow themselves to be this free. For example, another example is when Oscar's playing with his dad, and he's probably a vampire hunting. I mean, assuming because his dad has fangs, and he stabs him with a stake, and red petals burst out, um, symbolizing blood. But it's pretty and it's innocent and it's awesome. Um, what other scene? And that's the beautiful scenes, right? And there's so many other beautiful scenes. Like I said earlier, this isn't a sci-fi flick where everything is like a dream. That's not what I meant when I said that it was dreamlike. Dreamlike is the beautiful, I say, to express the beautiful use of pastel colors and light, foggy atmospheres. Before I just forgot what I was gonna say right now, but I remembered another thing that I almost forgot. Oscar works at a hardware store, and there's a hardware store near where I live, up the hill, and it's always foggy there because on top of the hills, usually the fog takes forever to go away. And I've done this before where I applied to jobs just because I saw a character that I like doing that job. I've had it before. And every time I looked at it, I'm like, maybe I should work there. Every single time. And I pass by there constantly. I mean, almost an everyday thing, really. And I always remember Closet Monster. Now, as the years have passed, it becomes less and less and less present or in your face type of thing. But I mean, it's been for years, and I still associate that place with the ambience of the entire movie, which is the foggy, pastel colored type dreamlike um, um, colors and ambience and environment. Another creative liberty. This is the thing that I almost forgot. When Oscar receives his letter from the university, you're usually going to say, unfortunately, after careful consideration, we have decided to not move forward, blah, blah, blah. Whether you're accepted or in this case, rejected. He opens up the letter and sees unfortunately, and after that, unfortunately, every word becomes unfortunately. So obviously, was that literally the case? No. It symbolizes that after the first unfortunately, Oscar knew that he was not accepted into that school, and his whole world came crumbling down for those few seconds while he read that letter. The same thing happened to me. It's not like I was dying to go to this university, but it was just what comes next and what I thought was going to happen, and all my friends were going there, and I didn't know what I was really going to do with my life. So I assumed that that was what was next, right? You go to elementary school, then middle school, then high school, then college. And I received a letter and it said unfortunately, and every other word for me also became unfortunately. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, I remember so vividly. I mean, not it wasn't like a schizophrenic type of where I'm like, visualizing things that are not there, but in my mind, after reading unfortunately, every other thing was just unfortunate. I just couldn't focus on what I was reading because I was so um distraught that I didn't get in. And I could relate to him so bad, like I said earlier, in so many ways, and this is one of them. Because like he admits, he was so cocky that he only applied to the school thinking, oh, well, I mean, they're going to hire me because I'm just so talented. Not hire you, but accept me. And I also thought the same thing. I was very delusional in the sense that, I mean, I really thought that I deserved things that I didn't put the appropriate amount of work to get. And that was a wake up call. But while it was happening, it felt terrible, and it felt like the end of the world for a while. And that's why then Oscar goes up and has this argument with his dad, who, I mean, it's a lot of stress with his parents, and I also experienced a lot of stress with my own parents. It wasn't the same. This is one where the movie varies from my own experience because my family life was different. The the details were different, but overall, the amount of stress that he felt and the uncertainty is something that I also felt with my parents, and we could say a little bit of projected and unresolved internal rage, um, which is awful to carry. But for example, I'm saying for example because I have to make reference to every scene, right? Every scene that I'm thinking, I have a thought in my head and then I associate it with the scene, or vice versa. There's a scene where Oscar's dad goes to his job and is like, Oscar, making a scene. He's like, yo, could you keep it down? And he's like, well, you have to go now. You didn't tell me they were going to stay late. He says, yes, I did. They have this little argument. And Oscar is embarrassed that his dad made this whole scene in front of everybody and that he's, not prioritizing him over his dates. I feel even when he walks back, Oscar is very angry and you could see it in his eyes, and it's a look that I feel like I've reflected to the world during that age as well. It was always like after the arguments, just walking back super mad, like just so angry, unbelievably angry. And I feel like Connor did an amazing job with that scene because I felt it. It was so real, and everybody who's experienced teenage rage knows what I'm talking about. Um, the kiss. Let's talk about the kiss. So Oscar tries drugs for his first time and experiments sexually with the guy. And he's at his treehouse, and Wilder's asking him, "So how long have you known that you're gay?" He says, "I don't know, I'm not sure." He says, "Well, do you want to find out?" And Oscar tells him, "Oh, this and that." At one point, because of the drugs and all the partying, he feels a burning sensation in his stomach. So Wilder gets water, puts it in his mouth, and pours it onto Oscar, and then kisses him. And it's like the proximities, I don't know, 2 3 inches from his mouth, and he goes closer and closer. And it's a key scene. And like I said earlier, it tells you everything and it tells you nothing. All I know is that it's beautiful. We see some waterfalls in the background, which is one of the artistic expression and liberty that I told you that this movie has, that a lot of other movies don't, when I was referencing the cloud, pinkish fog hue, um, or pinkish pastel hue, I should say. Um, and it's frustrating too, because being in the community, anybody who's gay, who's lesbian, or whatever, if you fall under the LGBT umbrella, you know how difficult it is to approach someone without knowing really what to expect. I could share with you an experience. When I worked as a baker, I worked there for almost 3 years, and I met this guy. He was heterosexual. I knew from the start. And shortly after meeting him, I told him, "Hey, I'm gay, by the way." And I knew that he was homophobic, and I knew that it was going to be a tough thing, but I like to be honest with people. And he just froze. I remember it like it was yesterday. He froze. He was taken aback. He just kind of nodded and then left, and then didn't talk to me the entire day afterward, to the entire night. His graveyard shift. And then the days went on, and he slowly started talking to me the way that he talked to me before knowing that. Because he is also from Latin America, so it's a lot of homophobia there. I'd say even more so than here. And I know so. um we were already, cool with each other, and we were friendly, and we would laugh. But just him knowing that I was gay, it just startled him. He even shared with me at one point, even after knowing about me, that if his son was to be gay, like, he straight up told me, and I'll try to be as close to what he told me. He said, "If my son were to be gay, I would pray to God for him to take him away. As much as I love him, I would rather him die, because he had his, like, father's name, so the kid's grandpa's name, and he felt like that was, like, insulting for someone to have his name and be gay." So there's a lot that goes into meeting new people, and I didn't condemn him. I absorbed everything that I had to absorb, and I let go of everything that I had to let go of that didn't belong to me, and all that luggage and burden. But at the same time, I felt thankful because he expressed himself sincerely and in the most respectful way that he could. Granted, he did say some very heavy things. But I share this story with you so that you understand how that scene with the kiss, it like I said, it's a big move. Because in life, when you're gay, then you can't, it's not as simple as just going over to a girl, and then what are the the chances of her saying, "Oh, I'm lesbian?" It really doesn't happen unless you're in that environment, a bar, a pride parade, or something like that. Usually it's a yes, or no, because I'm seeing someone else, or I'm not interested, whatever the case may be. But you don't feel that tension or that insecurity where if you tell another guy how you feel, then you could get beat up or killed, or told off, or they're gonna make a big scene, or they're gonna feel offended. So in my opinion, Wilder was bi, because he was very comfortable with his sexuality. He didn't have a fragile ego in that sense, because he wouldn't be willing to kiss him, to find out. if Oscar was attracted. I mean, he knew he was attracted to him. Um, but I feel like that's why I mentioned that he might be bi. Either he really cared for Oscar and wanted him to have his last kiss, but I'm leaning more towards he kind of liked them. It's just that he didn't like him maybe as much as Oscar did. It's left open to interpretation, but it was a very beautiful scene. It sounds yucky because of the whole saliva and sharing liquids, but it's beautiful once you watch it and you know the story and everything that Oscar had to go through. Another scene that I like to talk about is when he comes back from that moment. He wakes up and Wilder leaves a note like, "Hey, I had to leave." He goes over and breaks into his mom's house through the window, and she tells him that he had to struggle his whole life. He had to fight through things. He was born with his umbilical cord tied around his neck, and he has never had it easy in life, and he probably never will. So if he's forced to walk through poop, he better develop a stronger skin. um I like this scene and I like to talk about it because it shows another great example of realism is how people really should be. A lot of mothers sugarcoat things or go to the other extreme where they disown their children, but there's no real in between. And if that's you, then perfect. If you want to embrace and say that's awesome, I mean that'd be the ideal thing, right? But I feel like oftentimes mothers just want to baby their kids and they don't really tell you how it is, especially to protect you, but it ends up harming you more than helping because in the real world, people are not going to be as careful with you as your mother might. And she seemed, I remember when I first watched it, I was like, wow, this woman's cold. Does she even like her son? Or like, but then um, I felt like, you know what? It's real. It's real. It's preparing you, saying, um, Oscar mentions how devastated he is. Well, he says, I'm not even gonna go to college and I don't wanna go to community college. And she mentions there's an art school, it's a residence and she makes it seem like while he's not having everything he wanted or the way that he wanted, he could have something solid and something good for him. So she has those mother qualities. It's not that she's dismissive. It's like, I don't really care. What are you doing here anyway? No, she has those mother qualities, but she's also strong and firm and direct. And I think she sets him up for success in telling him that life is difficult. I tell people when we talk about whether they come out to me or we talk about the subject with my personal experiences, I tell them that coming out, you never really come out. You could come out at one point in your life when you're 15, and then when you're 20 you're gonna meet 100 new people and none of them are gonna know, and you have to come out again and again, and every time you meet someone new and you develop a friendship or relationship, you have to again and again and again. And that aspect of things really, in my opinion, doesn't get easier. It is what it is. Especially, I mean, I don't want to make this movie a negative thing with all this negativity because the movie's amazing, but I feel like if it's, you know um worthy advice to anyone, or if anybody's wondering what my experience is, then that's my experience with it. It's rough. It doesn't get it gets easier in the sense that once you acknowledge and accept yourself for who you are, then half the battle's won, because you could go on with your life being honest with yourself, so your body's gonna feel a lot more at ease. I had a lot of physical problems where I was physically 100%, but throughout my teenage years, early teens, for many years actually, I was in and out of hospitals, ER rooms, because my depression and my hate for being gay, it just manifested into physical issues. And once I accepted who I was and I just came to terms with it and I didn't hide from it anymore, then that went away. At least for a lot, now it's just other things, but it's a whole different thing. Um, so in that sense, it does get better, but in a lot of sense, it's always going to be tough. You're never going to live a life like a straight person lives. And once you come to terms with that, then it's another victory for you, is accepting that not everybody has the privilege of another, and you make do with what you have. Let's see. Is there the music? I was introduced to um, Bitch by Aliex, a song that I actually covered, and I mentioned earlier how Oscar was a lot like me. He took like pictures and they were gore and like special effects type of pictures. I also do that, so if you want to check them out, go ahead to my Instagram or Facebook, and they're there. The pictures that I put here on YouTube are also, my own. I take them, I edit them, I do everything myself, and it's one of my favorite hobbies in the world. There's so many artistic things I like to do, and my pictures are mainly horror focused. So that's another thing that I relate to with Oscar. Like I said earlier too, it was really there for me, this movie. I feel like that's why I'm so thankful to have movies around, because in my most deepest sorrows, movies are there and they're my friends, and they're a chance to escape and to get yourself out of this everyday torment and into a fictional reality, a fictional space with characters that you might identify with, or that you might hate, or that you might want to be like, or you could learn from. Um, and this was one of those movies. It, Gosh, I mean, I could go on and on. I feel like it's been a long time, and then I'm gonna have trouble uploading it. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it now. The movie 10 out of 10, one of my favorites. I watched it years ago and it's still going strong. The acting is amazing. The experiences, the teenage, like I said, um, the teenage experience as a whole is here in this movie. Lived through Oscar's experiences and his relationships with Gemma, who he was a douchebag to, but they made amends near the end. So I'm thankful for that. Um, it's amazing. The movie, I would really recommend it if you haven't watched it. I'm also going to review The Way He Looks very soon, which is right here. Another movie that I reviewed years ago, one of my first ones, but I also feel like nowadays I could do a better job with Closet Monster too. So it had, when you first watch it and you review it instantly, it has something precious, which is that instant reaction and most honest reaction to whatever it is that you felt or what you associated with back then. But now I think I have the honor of saying, hey, I lived through all those things. I'm in my 20s, late 20s now. So it's a completely different vibe, completely different experiences. The dogs are really distracting me right now. I'm so sorry, but I'm going to end it soon. And I mean, right now, I have to hear it back, see what dumb things I said, and see if I'm really proud of it. If not, I'm probably not going to upload it, but I'm thinking that this is a good one. This is a good review to my standards. I mean, there's so many awesome reviewers out there, but yeah, I'm glad that I got the opportunity to share my passion for this movie. And let me know what you think. Opinions are always welcome, whether they are the same as mine or different. And that's it for this one. Thank you for watching.